Somehow, my daughters fell in love with Formula One. I don't know how or why, but I'm not arguing. They may not know wheel, but does anyone?
Hi, and welcome to We Don't Know Wheel F1. I'm Anne.
And I'm Grace. We're two sisters who fell in love with Formula One, and now we have a podcast just to talk about it.
What a crazy weekend.
Oh my gosh. I think this is the weekend where the most friends I've ever had have contacted me about Formula One. It's been like the consistent, I read the article in NPR about the Las Vegas Grand Prix, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's my friends. It was a wild race on both like the racing side and the like production side. How about that?
Yeah,
The glitz
totally
and the
wild
glam.
race.
Yeah, I feel like Max was very outspoken in his dislike of it.
You can say that again.
Yes.
His complaining about the race was so entertaining all
Yes.
weekend long. And it also, as someone who was not that excited about the idea of a race in Vegas, not necessarily because I thought like the driving on the track was going to be horrible, just because like it was such a celebrity race where even like this is the race where I saw the most like celebrities I follow on Instagram, even like not even real celebrities, just like people with an Instagram following who I'm just going to assume that they know basically nothing
Anne
about
is
Formula One.
judgmental.
There were so many of them at this race, and it's just like, why are those the people that this race is catering to?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna touch that side of things, but I hear what you're saying. I think I mean, okay, I will say some things about that. But yeah, it was definitely a bummer because I think I didn't read the NPR piece, but a couple of my friends did and talked with me about it, and it sounded like it was primarily about how Las Vegans, is that the term for people who live in Las Vegas? They were not happy with this race, which felt fair because I feel like it didn't feel like the F1 tried very hard to connect with like the locals and make it like their race instead of just like the F1 race. And that's a bummer because I feel like that should be a moment to like actually bring something to the community and not just be taking from the community.
Yeah. And I also
I think that's a huge bummer. Like the fact that it was so expensive, the fact that it had such like obviously a street race is going to have a huge impact on traffic flow. And but I think it should ideally it should be doing in like the most minimal way possible, which also allows like the sport to continue. And it really didn't feel like that's at all what happened. And instead there was like a lot of bad will created because it felt like F1 was trying to like maximize every dollar that they could out of that instead of being like, what if we made, to me, I look at that situation, I'm like, what if you made that race amazing and really accessible? And then next year, everyone was like, oh my God, you have to go to Vegas because it was such an enjoyable experience, or like, it's such a cool experience. But no, Anne. I think Danny Ricciardo just said something where he was like, every race like GA should be accessible. And that's the thing. Like Vegas GA is not accessible. Like Monaco GA is accessible. That's crazy.
Yeah. The thing that was frustrating is that I, as an outsider, could watch everything happening and go to the organizers and tell them it's these things that are ruining this experience, where like it's really just comes down to the ticket prices, which made it so inaccessible, which like you can still have some super expensive packages. And like, I'm not saying that GA needs to be $100. Just have it be
no one's saying
reasonable.
That. Everyone's saying like just have it keep pace with like Austin. Even Miami's too expensive, honestly.
Yeah. So reasonable ticket prices, not cheap, reasonable. And you don't need to have the race start at 10 p.m. Vegas time.
Oh yeah, that was the meanest part. It was like, then it's so obviously not for, like, obviously it's an American race. It's meant to draw in people from all over the US, but
yeah. And
it's like, it's
and if you
not
just
made
start
for
the
anyone
race-
in the US.
if you just start the race at 7 p.m., even 8 p.m., it changes the timings
Even
of
9 p.m.
everything. Well, and I felt so bad for all the people who were doing media, of like the broadcasters doing
Yes.
F1 TV or Sky Sports.
Yeah.
And not only the drivers were on an insane schedule, but also all of the rest of the teams were on
Everyone
an insane
working.
schedule. Because even when they finish driving at 2 a.m, they're not going back to their hotel rooms and able to actually go to bed till 5 or 6 a.m. at least.
Yeah.
And it was all of the other stuff they have to do.
Because I think in my mind, I was like, well, I guess they are time zone jumping all the time, but everyone looked much more tired. And I assume that's because they have a lot of tricks that are meant to help them jump time zones to be like waking up when the sun wakes up, like helping them skip to those time zones, not helping them to be awake in the middle of the night. Very justifying in the way I feel so exhausted when I am awake in the middle of the night. No.
Well, I mean, our bodies are designed to respond to sunlight. And when you are trying to trick your body to sleep in till 2 p.m,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work very well for a lot of people. And I mean, I will admit, I don't have any experience with this. I've had roommates who are nurses, but you know a lot more than I do.
Yeah. No, it's terrible. And it was interesting because I feel like I don't usually feel like the drivers look, well, also, of course, there's the whole part of like they've been in the Americas for the past like month and a half.
Yes, they're on America's
So they're not
time.
even time zone jumping. They're not even time zone jumping. They've been in this time zone or like around it. And
even
then
a lot of the drivers didn't go back to Europe in between. They just like found some place cool to go somewhere in the Americas before coming to Vegas.
Yeah. So I was shocked how tired the drivers looked, like pretty consistently. And I don't feel like they normally look tired at all. I feel like they usually like, I mean, their whole thing is like really being on these regimens to be able to change time zones. And so they usually look fine. And this time I was like, they all look wrecked. Of course, also like getting their free practice pushed and all that was not helping.
The picture that Checo took of Lewis Hamilton sleeping in the driver's briefing, he shared on Instagram, was hilarious, but also I feel like really speaks to how tired they were.
Daniel Ricciardo looked they all looked sleepy.
Everyone.
Lance Stroll, everyone was tired. Okay. And then I would go from that to say that I don't know.
But if I'm going back to my list of ways that you fix the Vegas Grand Prix.
Oh,
ticket prices, changing the time.
Yeah.
Figuring out better systems to set up the track where it takes less time and is less intrusive in people's lives.
I think it's going to be less intrusive in the future, right?
Yeah.
Because they had basically had to like that one's going to be fixed.
Yeah.
But I do think, honestly, I've been thinking about it and I was like, I wonder if there's just a way that they could like I feel like part of the problem, we were not there, but we need to talk. We have a friend of the pod who went. But like, it seemed like because it's on the strip, they were like trying to really make it so you couldn't see the race unless you had paid for tickets, which were only in certain areas. So then they were blocking huge swaths of the track from view. And to me, I'm like, that whole idea needs to change because...
And there was like security shooing people away from where they were looking out of a parking garage to watch the race. Like, how obnoxious can you be?
But if you paid for a hotel, you could watch from your room in the hotel.
And it'll only cost you $10,000 for your hotel room.
Yeah, but like, what a bummer. So...
And then the final thing I would say is take all of the like show of Vegas that you want to do, cut it back by just 20%. It'll feel so much less obnoxious, but you still have the like show and the feeling of Vegas.
I'm not even anti that. I'm almost like, you can leave that all there.
As
But
long
honestly,
as you do the other stuff.
Yeah, do the other stuff. But honestly, I'm like, you should make it so like, maybe maybe this is a wild idea, but I kind of am obsessed with this idea. Maybe it's like, there's not even GA. The track is just able to be seen from the strip, and but the seat tickets are expensive.
Yeah, that's an
I don't know.
interesting idea.
Just something else, because the way it was done didn't seem like it worked.
Well, one of the frustrating things to me is that afterwards it felt like some of the commentators, whether that was in the broadcast or like on podcasts I've listened to, were trying to essentially act like and say that because the race itself was so good, it almost made up for all of the other crappy parts of the weekend. And I was like, both things can be true at the same time. It can be true that it was a great race, and it can be true that there were a lot of crappy parts to the weekend that need to be fixed.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's totally true. Like, it can, and I'm not even trying to say like no race in Vegas. I'm just like, make it better, be better. Oh yeah. But also like, the whole celebrity aspect, I mean, that's just not my vibe. It's a little gross to me.
I don't know that you can really control that. Just make it accessible to people.
I'm not saying don't do it.
Well.
I'm just saying it's not for me, but I'm not saying they can't do it. I get it. It's fun. I think there was like lots of fun, silly stuff. I think Max has a stick up his butt because he doesn't like to do PR, and it was like a lot of PR. But I think there were legitimate
like
concerns and complaints. Yeah, I think there were legitimate concerns and complaints though, like with everything that happened with Carlos. Like, that track should have been practiced on. I don't think he should have gotten the penalty the way he got it. Like, I think that was that's more like the side that I think Max was trying to say was the issue about like, basically like, this is too much about the show and too little about the sport. And the sport would be saying like, okay, if you're going to try a new way to cover the manholes, you better have a race here before F1 comes through, because we don't want to be up at 5 a.m. for pre-practice too, and no fans can watch it. Like, what a crappy situation. And that's like, that could have been dealt with. That could have been managed better.
Well, I would say two things about that. Number one, I heard that something happened where their track inspection that was supposed to happen 24 hours in advance didn't occur the way that it was supposed to, which that is 100% on the FIA and the track, and like that should be sorted out, because it's also like about the safety of the drivers. And Carlos's accident was really serious, where like I heard that he couldn't feel his legs for a few seconds because of how bad the accident was. Number two, I do not understand why they sent all of the fans home. Like, if the fans wanted to stay and were aware that they were going to get caught in traffic, let the fans stay.
I don't think it was for them getting caught in traffic, Annie. It was for Las Vegans being able to get to work in the morning. So they were saying like, they're going to basically like cause these traffic jams in the city for people who actually need to be able to go to work.
That's fair. But then as soon as you realize that free practice 2 is going to be delayed this much, send everybody home then. So they're not waiting at the track for hours to try and watch it. Definitely,
like, I understand why they needed both of the free practices to happen then. But again, leads back to this question of like, then why are you doing this so late at night? Because if you would have done it earlier in the evening, this would not have been the same issue.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
and if you had done your track inspection and made sure that the manhole covers weren't going to fly up and destroy a car.
Also, like, I know that it's Vegas and it's loud the whole night and whatever, but it's also like, having a race at 1 a.m. seems like it would suck if you were staying in Vegas. Like, it's not nice either.
A couple of F1 podcasters that are really like Matt and Tommy actually got to go to the race as guests of Red Bull. And so they like went and watched free practice 1, and Matt was saying that so the hotel room that he had looked out over the strip, and they like they could see the track from their room. And so he went back earlier to sleep after free practice 1 was essentially canceled. And he said he like woke up to the sound of Formula 1 cars, which for him was super cool. And he got to just like wake up, look out his window, watch the cars. But if you're just somebody who lives in Las Vegas and you have to get up in the morning and you wake up at 4 or 2:30 in the morning to hear these cars go by, like that sounds pretty miserable to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like the timing thing, that was quite a rough one. No, yeah. So, and poor Carlos, and forget the FIA. No, I loved all the like, unfortunately, although we make the rules, we cannot break the rules. And the rules say you take a 10-place grid penalty. Like, that was so rough.
It was a rough 24 hours for the FIA, because they were also put out several statements about the cancellation, or like how they sent fans out, none of which had an actual apology to the fans.
They're probably not supposed to, because
legal reasons.
Yes. Yeah. So that's like a troll. Our dad's friend went to watch the free practice. He like rented a car, drove, got cheap tickets, got 9 minutes of free practice, kicked out, then
he stayed
found a
around for a
parking
long
garage.
time.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
he stayed as long as he could until they were like, okay, everyone has to leave.
Yeah.
Then he found a parking garage where he could see the track, watched until security guards found him and kicked him out, and then tried to get cheap tickets for qualifying and couldn't get any, and just ended up driving home.
That sucks.
Yeah. So troll.
We're gonna try and interview him on the podcast another day.
Yeah. But yeah, okay, let's talk briefly about the celebrities, and then let's get into the race, because actually the race was so enjoyable. But here's
also want to discuss the golf tournament?
Yes, we can talk about the golf tournament briefly. I mean, I watched that whole thing. Well, most of it. My only celebrity hot take from this, I was chit-chatting with a friend, and I had just realized who waved the checkered flag, which I will say this. Unfortunately, did I fall asleep in the last 2 laps of the race? Yes, I did. I watched the whole race. It was such a good race. And then the last bit, it got a little bit slow. And next thing you know, I'm asleep, and I wake up and I'm like, what just happened?
And you call yourself a Ferrari fan.
If it would have been Carlos, I probably would have been awake. But so I didn't realize who waved the checkered flag, and until I saw it on social media, and I was like, it was Justin Bieber. It really felt like, I was like, how did they get there? And then in my mind, I just thought they tried to pick the most famous North American celebrity that they could get to come to an F1 race. I think that's really it. They should have had Rihanna do it, because I know Rihanna was at the Ferrari garage.
Bieber is the most famous
North American
celebrity at the race.
Okay, name Rihanna would be more famous. I don't know why they didn't get Rihanna. That was crazy. Like, Brad Rihanna's there. No, don't care for him. No. I don't know. I don't know why they chose Justin Bieber. I don't understand a lot of why they choose the people who like give the tires or wave the checker. It's very confusing to me. Like, are they paying F1? Is that a thing? What's going on?
I have no idea. But I will say anything was better than Tim Cook waving in Austin last year.
That was really good too. But I was talking with a friend, and I was like, guess who they had wave the checkered flag? And she said Guy Fieri. And I said, oh my gosh, that would have been so much better because he's like the king of Las Vegas. And it just feels right. You know, like I was like, if I saw Guy Fieri waving the checkered flag, I would have been like more forgiving of the glitz and the glam. No, it was just like, that would have been perfect. And then Ferrari could have done a segment with Guy Fieri with like hamburgers or something. I feel like that would have been quite good as well. Because Carlos has a real hamburger fetish. No,
I mean, he stopped at In-N-Out on his way home.
Stopped at In-N-Out. I was so excited when I saw that. Carlos at In-N-Out. It feels right. And if he ever badmouths In-N-Out, I'm going to have beef with him.
It was weird. I watching the like video of him ordering, I'm like, there's just such a big disconnect in my brain between like ordering at an American fast food restaurant and Formula One drivers.
I don't know. It feels right. But Carlos is like a big hamburger fan. He just goes around and tries hamburgers all over the world. That would be his second job.
Nice. He and Yuki can work together.
Yeah, they could have a really good, I would watch that TV show. It's like a Travel Planet show or like a Food Network show where they travel the world and try different foods. I think that would be very good, actually.
And they could like, whenever they go to a country where a Formula One driver is from there, they could have that Formula One driver show them around the best restaurants.
That's such a good idea, Anne.
We need to pitch this to Netflix.
That would be a really good TV show, I feel like,
So
when they
good.
Retire.
Yeah. And I feel like half of it would be Carlos just trying to stop Yuki from doing something insane.
They would be, I think, a good combo.
Oh, yeah. Great combo.
Okay, I think that would be very good. This is making me happier. Yeah. So that's my, okay, let's talk about the golf for a minute. The golf was so confusing. It felt very bro-y. It was like, I don't understand why. I feel like Lily should have been involved.
Yeah.
I thought the pairings were fine. That was great. I loved the drivers they picked because it felt like a really nice range. Like obviously Lando, Carlos are like obsessed with golfing. Albon has a girlfriend who's a professional golfer. Gasly was the real wild card there. It was very obvious the commentators did not know any of the F1 drivers, which felt like a miss.
They needed to just have
because it's not like it was like
between...
professional. The way the commentators were speaking about this golf match was like almost like, this is what professional golf is like. And it was like, this is like freaking mini golf, the way they're playing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
so
literally
the
like
commentators
they
were
had
talking that way, and yet they had every other
they had a
hole
hole where it was just like,
things.
Who can get in as fast as possible into the hole?
Which is like hilarious. But
That's
the
commentators,
way that the
Busis family plays golf.
No, don't handle it. What?
That's the way that dad plays golf. It's a very like, can you not get to the ball quickly? Throw down a new ball. Keep moving.
Golf goes in a water hole. Don't care. Throw a new one out there wherever you want.
Yeah. Have you hit your golf ball in a bush? Don't look for it. Drop a new ball. Always keep 3 in your pocket. Well, yeah. And that was like the wild part, because I think the way it was being played was like, you hit the ball, the driver and the professional golfer would hit the ball. And then whoever had the best, like wherever the ball landed, they would play from there.
Yeah.
Both of them. So then often like Pierre Gasly and his teammate got second, but Pierre was terrible. Incredible. He's a much better golfer than me, but they didn't use his shot. I think they used one of his shots.
And
then it was
Carlos
like getting
was the only one who was even remotely close to keeping up with the professionals, and he wasn't actually. He was just like 80% of the way there instead of being 50% of the way there. Like the other guys. I think
Lando was like 65% of the way there.
Yeah. Alex was trying hard not to embarrass his
not
girlfriend.
Even wearing golf shoes. He was wearing his merch shoes, which are very cute. I get why he did it, but like he slipped in the grass. They were like every hole had a gimmick, which that's such a fun idea. I'm not anti that at all. But then to have commentators who are like, oh, this is a big problem that amateur golfers have when they golf. They tend to do this thing. And it was legitimately, I thought it was fun and cool to see the professional golfers would give the drivers tips. And that was super, like, I like that.
Yeah.
But then to have the commentator be like, oh, no, it was like,
you just needed to have
who cares?
One lead golf commentator who is a little more chill about everything, and one commentator who knew Formula One.
What were they calling Carlos Sainz? They couldn't say his name correctly, which I feel like he has a very easy name.
It's a very easy name.
It was really good. And then the fact that he was like doing the best and he didn't know how to say his name.
Yeah, but it's just
very
like
enjoyable.
If they had better commentators,
hated all the guests that they have were really giving me the ick. It was like bro central.
Yep.
It was like bro-y male comedians, like Mark Wahlberg talking about how his daughter thinks all the F1 drivers are so hot. And it was just like,
he told some story of like, he didn't know why his daughter had gotten so into Formula One. And then he watched Drive to Survive and he saw the guys and he was like, oh, that's why. Like his daughter can't be interested in racing for the sake of racing.
Also, like, I feel like this is one of those things as a woman where you're like, I can make that joke, but actually you cannot.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
you know, like you're just like, oh, it's in very bad taste for you to say that. And that was kind of the theme of the night, was like all of the jokes just really gave me the ick.
Mm-hmm.
And
then on top of that, the
production was so bad.
So bad. Where like they could not figure out the sound, they could not figure out the microphones, and it was like they were trying to do too much. And at the same time, as I was watching it, this realization, like, they do live golf tournaments all the time. I don't know why you're having so much trouble figuring this out.
Netflix doesn't.
Other people do, so hire some people who do that for their job.
I agree. I was like, wow, I don't know what happened here. The sound was so terrible because they mic'd up all the golfers and the drivers, which is such a fun idea.
Yeah,
but then it seemed like no one knew when they were supposed to be being interviewed or talking or when they were on air. So then everyone kind of acted like they were on air all the time.
Yeah, it was weird. It was not good.
Honestly, I could have watched it and enjoyed it if they literally just had the golfers and the drivers mic'd up and they were just like, we're listening in on Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris.
That's literally all you needed. And then maybe one person to explain the gimmicks of the different holes.
They had the perfect golfers for it too. Like the combos were really good. It felt great. Like everyone... It was all, I mean, I actually feel like the grid is extremely friendly right now. So
yeah,
I don't feel like there's people who I would be like, ooh, but
no, not at all.
Yeah, it was just like, it was already a really good bunch of drivers who I feel like people enjoy from a social media standpoint. And then they could have just like shut up and let them do their thing. Not to be too much of a fangirl, but I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah. It was, in a way, it was so bad that it became entertaining.
It was hard to watch because it was so hard to understand what was going on and so hard to hear. And it was just like, felt like drunk people wandering around.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I saw some people on social media who will remain nameless, but who are definitely like in the F1 community being like, wow, it was incredible. And I was like, was it? Or do you feel like you have to say that because this is your job? Like, I'm not saying, I was like, I would love for them to do it again because it's a really fun concept. I want them to do that with all sorts of things. I just not like
do
that.
Do it better.
Do it better. Especially as we're like having this moment. Like, I think this weekend there was also I didn't watch it, but there was a thing hosted by talking about women in F1. And Jamie Chadwick was there, and Tony Cohen Brown, and other folks. And they were just talking about like how viewership of F1 is like over 40% female now. And it's a huge portion of the audience. So you're just sitting there like, who did you make this for? Because it certainly wasn't made for me.
Yeah.
Where maybe like Drive to Survive was made for me in a really brilliant way.
I would be curious to know who with the producers of Drive to Survive thought their target demographic was going to be. Like, did they think they were going to get dad's generation and older of like guys who've been into Formula One for their whole life and now they get to see the behind the scenes? Or did they think that they were going to get the younger generation who is into reality TV and the drama?
I think I'm going to make a guess here. It feels like, and in reading about the creation, it definitely felt like they were like, okay, we'll hire like prestige documentary makers to make this show that's about a sport and really is like a reality television show. And I actually think that's brilliant, because I think the best reality television comes from people who treat it more like a documentary, and it gets hard to continue to produce in that way, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you could even see that just from the clip that they showed during the golf thing of the upcoming season of Drive to Survive, whereas this, like, they even call it a scene, whereas a scene of Lando and Zach Brown going golfing, talking about the like difficult start to the season, and it felt like one of those Christian Horner and Jerry conversations walking through their farm, but instead this time it's just Zach and Lando out golfing, whereas like you can tell everything is very planned ahead, and Lando he just looks so uncomfortable because he's not very good at acting, and so you can tell that he's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. Well, I know the conversation we're supposed to have in our heads.
Yeah. That I think is the hard thing too. Like I think what you're getting at, and I agree, is like when it's more on the end of documentary, it is much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
And documentary and reality TV, when reality TV is done right, it feels like a documentary, I think. Like, my favorite trash reality television show, Vanderpump Rules, the first like 2 or 3 seasons of that, like it watches like a documentary where the people are just like, no one's ever going to see this documentary film, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're doing this all on camera, and they're just like turning the cameras on and recording it. And not that Drive to Survive felt like that. It felt like it was like prestige documentary, not just like turn a camera on. But I think that, and then it just turns out that like, of course people love that. It's like exciting and fun to watch like a documentary where you really feel like you're seeing real drama. And that's probably why like Haas is so enjoyable in that, because they are usually the ones that are most willing to be like warts and all out there. But
I've watched recently there's a season that just came out of Selling Sunset, which is a guilty pleasure of mine. And they're now in like season 7, and it's comparing season 1 to season 7. Like in season 1, they didn't all wear custom outfits constantly, and with like a makeup team to have them like perfectly made up. And they also, like, you could tell in season 1 they were actually like hustling to make a living doing their job as real estate agents, and now it's just like they're all, for the most part, so just wealthy, and they're making so much money off the show and social media, where it's like it doesn't feel like real estate is actually their full-time job anymore, and it feels like it's gotten more and more unrealistic, which I think Drive to Survive is going to have the same problem as the drivers and the teams become more closed off and guarded about what they're allowing to be shown to the producers of Drive to Survive.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I feel like their intention was probably just like, okay, like, I don't know, to me, I watched that first season. It feels like a labor of love for the fans of F1. It
Yeah.
feels like they're like, come behind the scenes, see what it's like on these obscure teams. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like, I mean, I know that it was intentionally done to try to bring in like new, younger audiences, but
Mhm.
I think it does it by like bringing a lot of love for the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that love for the sport has gone away by any means for the producers.
No,
It's just because it just becomes more difficult to
it's a lot
produce
more
as the year goes
scripted.
on. Mhm.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Well,
redo the golf thing and do it better next time, Netflix, because I
please.
liked it, but it could be better.
Yeah. Well, should we take a short break and then come back and
Yeah.
talk about the race?
Yes.
All right.
Welcome back to We Don't Know Wheel F1, sponsored today by the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We just can't get over watching that hot, spicy garbage. No, let's talk about the race. What did you think of the race, Anne?
Great race. Such a good race. I mean, the fact that not only was there like chaos from crashes, there was passing up and down the field, you also had an actual legitimate battle for the lead where like any of the top three could have potentially won. With yeah, awesome race, super fun. I so I didn't stay up to watch it because mom and dad had come to help me do a bunch of stuff fixing up the basement
You
of my
come
house.
for me, falling asleep in the last 2 minutes, but at least I stayed awake for the race.
So, of course, when I woke up, couldn't resist looking up the results of the race before I
I
watched
can't believe
it.
you did that. I never do that. I want to watch with
I'm
fresh
terrible
eyes.
at that. And so
It's because I have a hope that Carlos Sainz won, and I want to leave that hope as long as I can before I realize the reality of the situation.
I want to know how much I need to prepare myself to be devastated by what happens to Checo.
Stop it, Anne.
But so seeing that he ended up on the podium, I was like super excited. And I thought, this is going to be great. It's going to be just like a fun race of watching Checo do really well. And for the most part, it was. But then when it got to the point where he was leading on merit with like 15 laps left or maybe 20, something like that, I was like, oh no, this is going to be
A
like
devastating
watching to the
loss.
end of him getting passed by Charles and getting passed by Max and not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah, what happened to Checo?
He said that he set up his car differently from Max, and so he didn't have the same speed on the straights that they did. I'll also be honest that I feel like he should have defended better on the like one corner where you can really pass on the last lap. Which, yeah. I mean, what I've been hearing other commentators say is that like Charles was so far back that Checo probably didn't even think that it was going to be a worry or a concern.
That's what he said.
And it was yeah. And it was just a like crazy perfect lunge from Charles, which to be fair was. Impressive. But also it shouldn't Checo be defending prepared for
Red Bull be telling him like, wait, he's coming. He's on the move.
The other big thought I had about Checo over the weekend is that I feel like as much as Checo has had his own struggles, Red Bull should also take responsibility in some ways for like when they mess up with Checo. Like it was Red Bull messing up and not Checo messing up when it came to qualifying and him not making it through to Q3 because they didn't send him out when the track was at its fastest. And also, I mean, the fact that Seb was so dominant when he won several of his titles and his teammate never got second in the drivers' championship kind of says something about Red Bull, I think.
That they know how to make a winner, and it's by not. I think that there is some like, I think that's what a lot of the commentators and other drivers are saying about Ferrari is like, you're not going to have a world championship unless you
Prioritize
intentionally.
Charles.
That's not at all where I was going with that. I was just going to say, you need to pick a driver.
Sorry.
How could you, Annie? Yeah, but you need to like pick a driver and move that direction. You can't be like messing around, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what a fast track. We talked a little about Carlos's incident. That track was fast. I think like street track, it's gonna have issues. They need to get worked out. I do think like was it you I was talking to or someone else where they were like, I think it was maybe mom and dad, where they were saying like when was it mom? Like before they hosted the first Long Beach F1 Grand Prix, there was a requirement that they did another like race on that street track before the F1 race to confirm that it was like up to snuff.
That makes sense.
And yeah, you definitely got that feeling when you were watching it. You were like, they should have done one race before this because this is it's like.
And I mean, other cars are not going to be able to simulate the downforce that an F1 car has, but you can try and get close.
Well, of course, I'm on like the Carlos Sainz side of Tumblr. But there were people saying that like in the language commentators that they were watching in, the commentators were like legit trying to be like, that was Carlos Sainz's fault. Other people were avoiding that area of the track because that's where the manhole cover was. And you're just like, what?
No.
And I will say, like, I do think it brings up, like Sarah and I were talking about this today, like when I was watching that free practice session or like when you think about after the race, when everyone, like all the commentators were like, this definitely made up for it. This race was incredible. And you're like, yeah, well, you're paid by F1. So yeah, of course it's incredible. Like, and they have to maintain like a little bit of credibility by not being like too over the top. But it really like, you're like, yeah, I mean, you built the track, you inspected the track, you aren't at fault when the track is not safe. Like, come on. Yeah. You're the arbitrators of who gets in trouble when the track is not safe. You're the like you're just like, yeah, there's no,
you're the judge and jury for your own trial.
Yes. And I think like when Max was like talking about Carlos's crash and penalty, and he was like, you know, talking about Toto was like, everyone's making such a big deal out of this, and it's like Max is like, you know, he wouldn't be saying that if it was his driver. And I think that they all know that they have to like be in line a little bit. And you could feel it with this incident. Like, especially like the amount of time it took them to say what happened to Carlos. The fact that like I think I sent a text of the article, but there was an F1 article that was legit like, how will Ferrari recover from their mistakes? And you were like, what mistakes? What are we talking about?
This was one weekend where Ferrari legitimately
they didn't make mistakes.
I mean, you could argue that they should have pit Leclerc during the second safety car.
But I think that's one of those things where you're like, that's a safety car can happen at any time. So it's unlucky, but I wouldn't say it's and especially with a brand new track, like you don't know how many safety cars there's going to be. And really, there weren't very many considering.
Yeah.
Oh, and poor Lando Norris's, poor little Lando's crash.
Lando.
That looked scary.
Yeah. So scary.
I will say that track is so fast. It definitely made me be like, is this safe? Because that, especially like the turn that they go around, it's very like oval-esque. But when they come around that like 90-degree turn, you're just like, holy crap. They're going so fast.
I did love the pictures that Lando put up from when he was at the hospital. For like, it first of all showed like how serious his crash really was, but then also he looked so hopped up on painkillers.
I bet he had a concussion. Not medical advice,
Probably.
not a diagnosis, just
Yeah, it's definitely a significant possibility.
yeah. I mean, if you listen to the radio, they ask him like, "Hey, are you okay?" And it takes him a while to reply.
Mm.
And yeah, looked scary. It was like a
Yeah.
fast
I hope he's
place
doing
crash.
okay.
Yeah, and supposedly that was because of a bump in the track.
Yeah, I'm curious. I would be curious to know how much that's actually true. Because I mean, it could be. I don't actually know. It just seems a little crazy if just one bump in the track would cause something like that. But what do I know? I don't know, Wheel.
I don't know, Wheel. Yeah. There was so much passing, and also like the midfield is so tight right now. There was a lot of movement because of where people started. So obviously, like first turn, chaos, right? Because Carlos spins and who
who was the other
else?
person who spun?
Was it Fernando? Was it
Well, Fernando ended up face to face with somebody. Was that with
Botas?
Carlos?
They were literally turned around.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Somehow let's give a driver of the week who did not get driver of the day. Who got driver of the day?
Charles.
It should have gone to Esteban Ocon.
4th place. How?
Unhinged. How did that happen?
Do not remember seeing him in the broadcast.
Nobody does. I mean, I was like, wait, what? He started like 15th or 16th, fell back, and then made his way all the way to 4th.
How?
What did he do?
I have no clue. But also, the whole weekend and the whole race was so chaotic that I feel like
Yeah, it was.
no one has talked about Esteban being in 4th place.
No, nothing.
Poor
And Lance
Esteban.
Stroll, he was
that too. Lance Stroll in 5th.
and then the poor Williams, which I
What
don't know
happened
enough
to them?
about. I don't know, Wheel, but I thought they have really good straight line speed,
I
and
know.
they did not do well.
I think something
in
happened
this-
with their strategy, and like both safety cars went against them, and yeah,
Okay.
I don't know, but it was a bummer. And I had Alex and Williams on my fantasy team.
Oh no.
And after qualifying, I was feeling so good.
That's a rough one. That's like
and I also
minus
had
points.
Max and Charles on my fantasy teams. I was like,
That's gonna help you out.
I got this all right.
Kind of evens it out
Yeah,
in a way.
it's fine. I'm still winning.
Yeah. Yeah. But like really enjoyable race to watch. There was just so much movement. There, yeah, like you were saying, like legitimate. It wasn't just like you haven't pitted yet. That's why you're in first. It was like 3 different race leaders.
I think
We
it
got
would have
James
been
Hinchcliffe. I was happy. No.
it would have been more fun to see if Charles had not gotten past Checo earlier on when Checo had the lead. How well Max would have been able to get past both of them in that order, and like what the fight would have turned into between the Red Bulls. I don't know.
Yeah.
Still a fun race.
It
also would have been really fun to see Charles win.
I loved Max
and
saying,
not a Red
let's
Bull.
work together.
As he breezes past Checo.
Let's work together. Like, no, I don't think you're going to do that. Do you think?
I will give him credit. He did slow down to try and give Checo a tow, and then end up just giving Charles a tow.
Let's work together.
It was unintentional though.
Sure. Do you think that Max really went clubbing after?
I saw a video of him clubbing.
Did you? Why didn't you send me
Yeah.
those videos?
It was a video on Twitter, and so you wouldn't be able to watch it.
This is why no one's on Twitter anymore, because it sucks.
Sorry. But yeah, he was out clubbing with is the DJ's name like Martin Garrix or something like that?
Yeah. Was Daniel with them? Who was with them?
I just saw the two of them. That was it.
Boo. Boo. Yeah. Another plus side of going to like the Las Vegas Grand Prix. You get to go out and party after. Maybe you meet a driver. Maybe you
one
fall in
more
love.
amendment to make to my list of ways to improve the Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Okay.
Add an extra week before you go to the Middle East, because the time change is going to be so hard on the drivers, and they have no week in between.
Mhm.
It's race.
Well, they've been up all night, so they should be fine. No.
Yeah. Which also means that they can't go out and enjoy Las Vegas at all.
Well,
Most
they
of them were
obviously
getting
did.
on. I think Max is the only one I saw.
That's crazy. Max is like, I'm actually just going to let Yuki drive my car next race. I'm going to sit this one out. Let Liam in there. I'm tired. I wanted to party in Las Vegas. I had a good time.
Let's do it. That would be kind
I'm
of
sick.
amazing. It'd be so fun to see what happened. My gosh.
That would be wild. Okay. Also, the Mercedes. Let's talk about them. Mercedes and Ferrari, they're very tight in the championship right now.
4
And
points.
the fight for third is like a point apart by each driver.
Mm-hmm.
Like Carlos and Fernando are tied, and then Norris is like a point or two below,
Mm-hmm.
and
Charles is 15
Charles is
below
like,
that.
Yeah, like
Right
so tight.
Crazy.
I love it. That's good. That's competition, baby.
Yeah. That's what they should spend Drive to Survive focusing on.
I hope they do. I mean, why
I
would you
think they
focus
will.
on the championship?
I will. Okay, yeah. So I think they'll spend probably
Tell
at
me what
least
you
an
think.
episode or two on Checo and the ups and downs of his season, which will be how they like show Max.
I think they'll only do one episode because I think Checo is not going to allow them to do that much filming with him.
I don't know how much he does get to decide when they film. So I think there's gonna be that. There's gonna be an episode on like Aston Martin,
the rise and fall.
Yep, rise and fall. And there, of course, is gonna be an episode of McLaren doing the opposite. And then I
Ferrari, it's gonna be about the
between the drivers.
Drama. Yeah.
I think there might be an episode about like George struggling to match Lewis this season.
That would be a good one. I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, if I could give you some of my dream episodes, because I think those are obvious, I would love to watch one about Bottas and Zhou and just like their friendship, how they're growing as a team. I would love to watch one about Albon, like finding his place in Williams and like him
and the struggles of Logan Sargent.
Mm-hmm. And James Vowles and just like
yes.
Yeah. Like I feel like those episodes would feel really good. Like,
and I'm sure they're gonna have an episode of the rotating door at AlphaTauri.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they have to because they have to have a Daniel episode.
Of course. How could you not?
Yeah, how could you not?
Drive to Survive is not Drive to Survive without a Danny episode.
No. Yeah. So that feels, but I honestly, I really will be disappointed if there aren't at least like a whole episode devoted to Williams and a whole episode devoted to
Alfa Romeo.
I wanted to call him Sauber.
There has to be the like behind the scenes drama of Alpine.
I was gonna say Alpine is like, if they're not filming that, they're crazy. Like that's got to be the spiciest. And I hope they bring Cyril back just to commentate on it, just to be like, these are the rumors that I hear. That's not a French accent.
Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of good background drama. I do not really need to hear that much about Red Bull or Ferrari or even like a little about Mercedes, but like I think there's probably such good stories from the mid
everyone besides those three teams.
Yeah.
especially because everything's been so close this season
Yeah.
that there's just like
It's-
constant ups and downs besides Red Bull. And I mean, but I think that Ferrari and Mercedes have been more consistent than a lot of the other teams.
Yeah.
Even on their bad weeks, they're not as bad.
Yeah. But I don't need to see like a whole special on that.
No. But I feel like this is going to be a good season of Drive to Survive.
What else did you think about that race, Anne?
It was fun. It was impressive to see how much racing happened. And it was weird to see a race where usually when you're watching racing, you can either like watch the gaps and be like, oh, that person is going to catch this person quickly, or oh, they're not making up time fast enough.
They were all so close the whole time.
Yes. And also just the fact that like Checo legitimately passed Charles on track. And then Charles legitimately passed Checo on track. And then Checo legitimately passed Charles again. And then Charles legitimately passed Checo again after that. Like that doesn't happen in a race. And it wasn't like their tires necessarily changing that much. It was just good racing.
Yeah.
And the slipstreaming effect was so interesting because usually you have to have such a speed advantage between cars for one car to be able to pass another to deal with the like the negative effects of being caught behind a car.
Mm-hmm.
And with the slipstream, that wasn't as much of a factor, which I felt
Mm-hmm.
like made the race really interesting. So yeah, it's a good time. It's a fun watch. I wish it had happened 3 hours earlier so I could watch it live.
So we could watch it live.
Well, can you believe we only have one more race left?
No, I'm so sad.
I know it's gonna be weird.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna know what to do with my weekends anymore.
I know. We'll have fun.
Weird.
We'll find things to do.
Yeah. Well,
it's gonna be great.
Yeah. I feel like it's gonna be weirder after Christmas is done. Because between now and Christmas always just like so busy and chaotic.
Well, here's another idea. We see what they get for their Christmas gifts and then we get those for ourselves. No.
I do have to say, I always look forward to their Christmas gift videos.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so bad. It makes it so good.
Yes. I think my favorite part of the Las Vegas Grand Prix was the like pre-show like magician doing magic tricks with Carlos and Charles.
Was there a full
they were
YouTube
so
video that came out
into it.
of that? Or just like TikTok or something like that?
What?
Was there a full YouTube video that came out of that?
I think that was literally part of the pre-show.
Oh.
Yeah. Because it was a really
That's
long
hilarious.
pre-show. I watched a part of it and then I was like, yeah, I can't be tuned into this.
Their pre-shows are like an hour long. I don't usually watch.
No, it was like longer than that.
Vegas.
It was a production. So
okay.
Yeah.
One last complaint about Vegas.
Okay.
I did not understand why they felt they needed to drive the top three first to the like Bellagio fountain.
I loved this.
And then
it was so dumb.
Drive them to another location where the podium, or I think was it even back where they were like to the pit lane where they had originally come from?
I think it might have been, and it was a real like, now look at the fountain. But you know what it reminded me of is like at Austin when they had that like huge car last year and like Shaq was in it and then they're all in this huge car in Austin and you're just like, oh my goodness.
But the funniest part is that none of the drivers or the like top three did not care about the fountain. They're all just standing there like, what am I supposed to do? Did you see the video of I don't remember if I said it on Instagram, but the video of the like introduction to the driver parade with Checo?
Oh yes, I've seen
was
that.
Just, like yelling in his face, and Checo was just like,
I think he said Charles's name completely wrong.
And you can, after he like Checo stands there for a minute and is looking around, and you can see if they like I don't know where I'm supposed to go, or I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
There was a lot of good pre-race content, I will say.
Yeah. Yeah. And some very cute pics of all the drivers gossiping in their like holding area.
Yes. I want to be in the holding area.
No. Netflix better be in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So ultimately, I'm not anti Las Vegas. I'm just pro the people, and the people deserve an accessible Grand Prix.
The proletariat will rise up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, isn't that an interesting? I really don't know enough about NASCAR, but I'm going to put a quick blurb in here to say like NASCAR grew out of like people driving.
Was it like stock car races?
No, but like it was. I was about to say that it was. It's really bad, Anne. It was really bad. So I take it back. I was gonna say people driving alcohol during prohibition.
Bootleggers.
It was bootleggers, but I'm now realizing like it was bootleggers obviously after prohibition, because I think the timing's wrong for that. But maybe I'm not wrong. Somebody correct me here.
Do you know when NASCAR started?
Well, obviously not in the 1930s, but
it may have. Formula One started in the 50s.
No. But I do think like, I mean, NASCAR, huge issues with racism.
Yeah.
More of a proletariat beginning. Because F1 was definitely like rich people who just wanted to drive fast.
It was the elites.
NASCAR, that grew out of the working man's world. We're not going to become
Lando Norris
NASCAR
is such a working man.
He is. He is. He's just a little boy. Leave him alone. Okay, well, this was nice. We'll see you all for the next race.
Yeah, we'll see you in a week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye.
Bye.